Well, Hillary Clinton says she wants to win over everyday Americans, but even some on the left think she's too much of an elitist to identify with folks on Main Street. Listen to Ralph Nader. Ralph, is Hillary Clinton a crony capitalist?
Yeah, for sure. When she was a senator, she did not challenge any corporate welfare boondoggle, and there are dozens of them. And as part of the Obama administration, she certainly hasn't done that. And her years in New York have just turned her into a dyed-in-the-wool corporatist and militarist.
Wow, from Ralph Nader. Is he right or is he wrong? Hi, everybody. I'm David Aslan. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. Let's go in focus with Steve Forbes, Rich Carlgard, Sabrina Schaefer, Mike Ozanian, John Tamny, and back again. Yes, he's back this week. Austin Goolsbee, former White House chief economist. Glad we didn't scare you off. Thanks a lot for being here, Austin. Appreciate it. Rich, you heard Ralph Nader. Has he got a point?
Yeah, it's a great point. Take these $200,000 speeches. Steve Forbes and I have heard her speak at a corporate event, and I must assure you she's not the worst speaker in the world, but she's not a $200,000 speaker. What are people paying for? They're paying for access to a possible future president. Pay to play is what Hillary and Bill Clinton have been about their whole careers.
Well, Austin, she did a lot of talking this week. Here's basically a nutshell of her popular words of wisdom. Let's play it.
There's something wrong when CEOs make 300 times more than the typical worker. There's something wrong when hedge fund managers pay lower tax rates than nurses or the truckers that I saw on I-80 as I was driving here over the last 2 days.
As she was driving, she was being driven, by the way, we should point out. Austin, coming from a woman who makes $200,000 plus an hour, doesn't that sound a little hypocritical?
Look, I don't think I agreed with what she said. You know, we got things riddled in the tax code that make no sense. There's an irony that you're playing Ralph Nader saying she never opposed any corporatist whatever in the tax code, and then you played her saying I want to remove this thing from the tax code. I mean, my understanding is Ralph Nader's had a thing out for the Clintons for a long time, so I'm not surprised that.
All right. Well, Steve, is it just that? Is it just that there's a rivalry between Ralph and Hillary, or has he got a point here?
I don't think
that's for Steve, Austin. We love you, but that's for Steve. We got a lot of people here. Go ahead, Steve.
It is a form of a cronyism. You see it in her support of the Exim Bank. You see it in her support of subsidies on the green side to companies that couldn't survive otherwise. You see it in the war on prosperity. You see it in the war of the EPA against energy. And in terms of taking those $200,000 or $300,000 pops, those are given the money, think they're going to get anything in return. Forget about it. She'll bank the money and go to the populist left.
All right, but John Tamny, the thing is, it is the hypocrisy that bothers America, or the inability to identify with a candidate. Many people say that's what killed Mitt Romney in the exit polls. You saw this, that people couldn't identify with him. They thought he was just too elitist, too far above their problems. Will Hillary have the same problem?
Well, you know, at least Mitt Romney made his money by turning around corporations. I think in Hillary's case, she's just a first-rate opportunist. She worships money because money is the path to power. The corporations, the top ones could be lawnmower corporations. She'd hang around with them if that meant that it could get her to the White House. It makes no difference what business they're in.
So, Sabrina, will this kind of arrogance and privilege come back to haunt her during the campaign?
Well, I certainly think it's going to be a common theme, and interestingly, it's coming from both the far left and the right. They're both sort of attacking her with this populist messaging. But at the same time, look, I think that Hillary Clinton is someone who does whatever is politically necessary at the time. She is not a Ralph Nader. She is not an Elizabeth Warren. She is not ideologically driven. She will do what is politically viable. And so for her right now, talking about sort of income inequality is she thinks is going to in the polls.
But, Mike, if this charge sticks, that she is a crony capitalist and elitist, I'm wondering if she'll tack to the left during the campaign, whether she'll endorse policies that'll hurt capitalism even more.
Well, I think right now, David, the only thing that's going to matter as far as whether or not she gets elected is whether or not the Republicans, who, let's not forget, George Bush was the biggest spender as a president we ever had until President Obama.
That's true.
And all of the presidents except Ronald Reagan during my lifetime, if you look at government spending, have been crony capitalists. Nixon was, Ford was. So we need a Reagan-like candidate who could spell out a clear, concise agenda, because this president has given us the worst economic recovery we've had since the 30s, and unless we elect somebody like Reagan, we're going to continue down this terrible path.
So, Austin, you see, we're fair and balanced here. We go after Republicans as well as Democrats. Go ahead.
Look, The first thing Ronald Reagan did when he left office was sign up with the Speakers Bureau and give paid speeches in Japan. So let's not turn that into something it's not. I think the difference between Hillary Clinton and Mitt Romney, and the reason why it's not going to be easy for somebody in the Republican Party to try to turn her into Mitt Romney, is the policies she is supporting are not ones that people are going to say they're just benefiting people that make a lot of money. Everyone that runs for president has been unbelievably blessed. If you look at the net worth of our candidates for president over the last century, they're unbelievably high.
But again,
she's not supporting tax cuts for rich people in a way that Mitt Romney was.
Rich, the thing is, though, that Hillary, she admits she hasn't driven a car in decades, by the way. She's been living so long in this rarefied environment. Some people think she's out of touch. I mean, you think of Scott Walker, for example, a governor who didn't even graduate from college. He really has a sort of story that fits more than hers does.
Good evening. Hi.
Yeah, and so Marco Rubio has the same kind of story. Look, what America hates is a phony, and I think that she comes across as a phony. I think that Barack Obama comes across as a phony when he bashes corporate jet travel, and the taxpayers give him the best jet that's ever been made in the whole world.
But, Steve, isn't it incumbent upon Republicans, then, to put up a candidate that has a genuine story that Americans believe in?
Well, that's right. And in terms of Hillary Clinton, they don't have to say too much. She's her own best critic. Her behavior undermines her every day. So Republicans do have to come up with a Reagan-like agenda, pro-growth, show that they have something positive to say instead of throwing darts at the other side. Absolutely.
By the way, she does attract a lot of people from Wall Street. And this week, John, one of your former alumni of Goldman Sachs was just appointed as CFO for her, Gary Gensler, a multimillionaire.
Of course. You know, Wall Street's where the money is, and so that's where Hillary's going to migrate toward. But, you know, I think Mike hits on something important. In a sense, we're all screaming at the scoreboard, complaining about Hillary. This is a symptom of big government. So long as the government is spending $3.5 trillion a year, opportunists like Hillary from both sides, let's face it, neither side wants to cut spending, will migrate toward politics.
Well, and Sabrina, the whole point, and going back to Ralph Nader, I think he does make a point. What's worse is when corporations and government work together hand in glove. So corporations get these special deals. Right. They cut out the middleman, and that cuts out a lot of the middle class.
And why does this happen? As John points out, it was a sort of music to my ears. This is when, you know, government gets into the business of healthcare or energy or education or home ownership. Once you get government into the business of all of these different industries, there are people who are going to be winners and people who are going to be losers, and there are people who are lobbying to be the winners. So I don't think that it's any surprise that we're seeing Wall Street sort of, you know, want to get on the bandwagon quickly, but they're going to want to get on the Republican bandwagon too, because as John says, this is a symptom bloated progressive state.
Well, let's face it, Wall Street is always going to spread their bets no matter who is running. Coming up next, here we go again. Why a new plan to rush first-time homebuyers in has our guys freaking out. Will you end up footing the bill?